On the evening of February 9, 2004, a young American nursing student named Maura Murray crashed her car off Route 112 near Haverhill, New Hampshire, then vanished into the darkness. Her disappearance captivated a nascent community of internet sleuths who met on message boards and in chat rooms to speculate about her whereabouts. For 20 years, they've kept her case alive, looking for clues that might solve the mystery. This is the baffling disappearance of Maura Murray. Maura Murray was a lively, fresh-faced young woman who seemed to have everything going for her. Born May 4, 1982, this 21-year-old co-ed was a transfer from West Point, enrolled in her junior year at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. She was a Dean's List student who ran track and worked several part-time jobs, yet made time to keep in touch with her friends and family. She also had a long-distance relationship with her boyfriend, Bill Rausch, who she met before she transferred. Yet Maura's cheerful smile hid a certain amount of emotional turmoil, perhaps caused by stress at school, worry about her siblings, and anxiety about her own path in life. Maura was working at her campus security job when she got an upsetting phone call from her older sister, Kathleen, who had just gotten out of rehab. She had tried to stop drinking, but the habit was hard to break. She told Maura that her fiancé drove her to the liquor store on the way back from the clinic, and she had relapsed immediately. Maura took the news very hard. Today, some people suspect that Maura also struggled with her own addictions to alcohol and food, and think that she may have been bipolar and bulimic, though no one knows for sure. Everyone who knew Maura loved her go-getter attitude, so they gave her a pass when she'd act out. Maura had a bit of a wild streak and was sometimes less than honest. The previous November, she got caught using a stolen credit card to purchase Chinese food over the phone. Though the court agreed to continue her sentence in March and eventually dismiss it if she stayed out of trouble, Maura may have been worried about her record. Still, because she was generally a good kid, people mostly thought well of her. It's reasonable to think that Maura told fibs to convince everyone, including herself, that she was healthy and in complete control of her life. Maura had grown up Irish Catholic in Hanson, Massachusetts. Her parents divorced when she was 6, and afterwards, Maura stayed with her mom, Lori, and her 3 older siblings, Fred, Catherine, and Julie. Her younger half-brother, Curtis, moved away with their dad, Fred Murray, but Maura stayed close to them too. At Whitman-Hanson Regional High School, Maura became a track star, earned a spot in the National Honor Society, and was generally an overachiever, but she still made time to hang out with her high school girlfriends and go hiking with her dad. After graduation, Maura followed her sister Julie into the United States Military Academy in West Point, New York, and majored in chemical engineering. 3 semesters later, she decided that military life was not for her, so she transferred to the University of Massachusetts Amherst to study nursing. Despite everything, Maura generally seemed to be on the right path. Perhaps her bouts of strange and uncharacteristic behavior were unconscious cries for help. In fact, Maura's life was destined to spin out of control in a way no one could have imagined. The week after Maura spoke to Kathleen, Maura's dad drove up to Amherst to take her out shopping for a new car to replace her unreliable 1996 Saturn. After eating dinner at a local pub, she borrowed Fred's new Toyota Corolla, drove him back to his motel room, and went back to campus for a dorm party. Maura got there at around 10:30 p.m. and left a few hours later. At around 3:30 a.m., while she was driving back to the motel, she lost control of the Corolla and hit a guardrail, causing nearly $10,000 of damage. The officer at the scene checked on Maura and took her the rest of the way to the motel without giving her a sobriety test. Although Fred was upset about the wreck, he reassured Maura that things would be all right, telling her that his insurance would cover the damage. After driving back home to Connecticut, he called Maura late that night to discuss the accident form she would need to pick up for the insurance claim. They planned to speak again the following Monday to complete the forms. It's very possible that Maura's credit card scandal, her sister's relapse, and her accident were escalating signs of a woman in trouble. Yet in real time, no one thought to tell Maura to step back and slow down. Maura was driven, and it's likely she wanted to handle things for herself. On some level, she must have realized she needed a break, but instead of reaching out for help, she decided to leave town for a few days. To avoid causing alarm or answering any awkward questions, she kept up with her normal routine, stayed in touch with her boyfriend, and emailed her friends about getting together to see Dane Cook in concert on February 12th. Yet, in the wee hours of February 9th, Maura was online searching MapQuest for directions to Burlington, Vermont, or the Berkshire Mountains. The next afternoon, Maura emailed her boyfriend, Bill, to say, "I love you more, stud. I've got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking to much of anyone. I promise to call today, though. Love you, Maura." She then made a call to reserve a rental through a condo association in Bartlett, New Hampshire, where her family had stayed in the past, but for some reason, the rental fell through. At 1:13 p.m., she called a classmate, then emailed her nursing professor to say she would be out of town for a week and that she'd check in when she got back. Maura had made up an excuse that she had a death in her family, but it wasn't true. At around 2 p.m., Maura was on the phone again looking for a rental in Stowe, Vermont. After failing to secure a room, she called Bill again and left a message, promising to catch up later. Whatever was going through Maura's mind, her choices were calculated yet somewhat irrational. She packed a bag with her clothes, textbooks, birth control pills, and some toiletries and put it in her car. Yet strangely, before she left, she also took her art off the walls and put her belongings in boxes, as if she planned to move away. By the time Maura drove away from campus in her ailing black Saturn around 3:30 p.m. Monday afternoon, classes had been canceled due to an impending snowstorm. Maura headed out anyway, stopping briefly at an ATM to take out $280, which made up most of her bank balance. Afterwards, she stopped by a local liquor store and bought about $40 worth of Bailey's Irish Cream, Kahlua, vodka, and Francia boxed wine. Sometime that day, she also stopped by the Registry of Motor Vehicles to get the accident report form she needed. Maura made one last call to check her voicemail at 4:37 p.m. as she was heading north out of Amherst while it was still light outside. She never told anyone where she was going or why, yet other than the packed boxes in her room, nothing suggests that she planned to run away. In all likelihood, she was simply stressed out, not thinking straight, and looking to clear her head with a trip out of town. By 7 p.m., night had fallen, and Maura had made it to New Hampshire, driving northwest along Route 112, a snowy, winding, tree-lined road in an unfamiliar area near Woodsville. In the episode Hometown Tragedy, The Mystery of Maura Murray, produced by Very Local and available on YouTube, Maura's dad said she was probably headed on a road to Bartlett, where I'm sure she was going, because she knows it like her backyard, because we were in New Hampshire so much at least 4 times a year. Just before 7:30, a local named Faith Westman heard a loud noise outside her window and peered out to see a car stuck in a snowbank pointing the wrong way along the eastbound side of the road. Maura had hit a tree. Minutes later, when the woman called the Grafton County Sheriff's Department to report the accident, she said she saw a man smoking a cigarette inside the car. But later, she said that it could have been a reddish light from a cell phone. Moments later, Butch Atwood, a school bus driver, passed Maura's car and stopped to see what was wrong. When he found Maura at the scene, she seemed cold and shaken up, but otherwise sober and uninjured. In footage from a local television news interview, Butch says, "I just asked her how she was. She said she was shaken up. I couldn't see any blood on her face, and she was shaken, I guess. I says, okay, I'm gonna go call the police." Yet according to the police report, Maura insisted that Butch leave things to her and told him that she had already called AAA. However, since the cell phone service in the area was so bad, Butch suspected that she hadn't gotten through, if she made the call at all. Butch asked Maura again if she needed help, then he left the scene without her. He returned home and, against her wishes, called the police at 7:43 p.m. Butch Atwood was the last person to see Maura alive. What happened next is unclear. People in town say that several cars passed Maura's crashed car between 7:30 and 8 p.m. One resident claimed to see a police SUV parked on the scene before Butch Atwood called in. But the official police log shows that Haverhill police arrived later at 7:46 p.m. By that time, Maura was nowhere in sight. Maura's sister Julie says that's when the nightmares began. Police discovered that her car was damaged to the point that she couldn't have driven it away. The car's windshield was cracked, its left headlight was smashed, and both airbags had deployed. The doors were locked, but when police opened them, they found a damaged box of Franzia in the back seat. There appeared to be red wine stains inside the car and in the snow outside. The car also contained an empty beer bottle, Maura's AAA card, blank accident report forms, driving directions to Burlington, Vermont, and some of Maura's favorite belongings, including diamond jewelry, a stuffed animal, and a book about mountain climbing in the White Mountains called Not Without Peril. The rest of the alcohol Maura had purchased, as well as her debit card, credit cards, and cell phone, were missing. Police had the car towed to a local garage about an hour later. Initially, police assumed that when Maura crashed, she may have been intoxicated and trekked into the woods to avoid being charged with a DUI. Yet strangely, they found no footprints at the scene. Julie told Very Local that the first responding officer did notice some peculiar things at the scene where the Saturn was found, such as a rag in the tailpipe. There was some red liquid, which may have indicated that she was drinking. She continued, "I don't understand why they didn't do more that first night, because if she had been drinking, if she did hit her head, she was in great danger, because it was cold. It's February, it's New Hampshire, there's 2 feet of snow on the ground, and she didn't know that particular area." Police did not suspect foul play, although, as Julie mentioned, they had noticed a rag, which may have been part of Maura's emergency roadside kit that had been stuffed into the car's muffler pipe. Julie said, "There was no footprints in the snow, nothing. She just disappeared off the face of the planet in a 7 to 10 minute window with people watching her." Police did not officially designate her as a missing person until a few days later. By the following afternoon, February 10th, Haverhill police had identified the Saturn as Maura's car. They got a hold of Kathleen, who contacted their dad later Tuesday evening. Fred then called the police, who told him that he would begin searching for Maura if she did not turn up that night. Worried about his daughter, Fred decided to drive to Haverhill that night. Julie said, "It was panic, then chaos, then back to panic." Fred arrived at the scene of the accident before dawn, and at 8 a.m. on Wednesday, he met with New Hampshire Fish and Game and some locals to begin their search. According to Julie, Fred conducted most of the search himself. Taking Maura's scent from one of her gloves, a tracking dog showed that Maura had probably walked about 100 yards away from the car, heading east. At this point, the dog lost the scent, suggesting that someone may have stopped to offer Maura a ride, and she had accepted. That day, Maura's boyfriend, Bill, and his parents flew in from Oklahoma to join the investigation. During the flight, Bill received a voicemail message that he believed to be from Maura. She was sobbing softly but not speaking. The call was made using a prepaid calling card, and it's not clear if Maura made the call. After questioning Bill, the police speculated that Maura came to New Hampshire to run away or commit suicide, though her friends and family find this theory to be off base. The family may have believed that police weren't taking the case seriously or doing enough to look for Maura. The next day, February 12th, Bill and Fred spoke to the press in Bethlehem, New Hampshire, and on February 13th, Maura's story hit the news. Someone had reported a possible sighting of Maura alone, wearing jeans and a black backpack, walking quickly along Route 112, about 5 miles east of the crash site. That afternoon, police told the public that Maura might be headed to the Kancamagus Highway area and said that she was possibly in a bad state of mind and endangered, stating that, "Our concern is that she's upset or suicidal."
The evening of February 9th.
A week after Maura's disappearance, her story had made the national news. CNN's American Morning interviewed Fred and Bill, and Maura's family began searching for her in Vermont. Police, however, still listed Maura as a missing person and didn't attribute her disappearance to crime. The FBI began an investigation 10 days after Maura disappeared and announced a nationwide search, but to no avail. Ground and helicopter searches, aided by tracking and cadaver dogs and thermal imaging cameras, turned up nothing. Maura's sister found a pair of ripped white women's underwear on a snowy, secluded trail nearby on February 26th, but DNA tests revealed that the underwear belonged to someone else. By the end of February 2004, there was still no sign of Maura. Haverhill police returned Maura's belongings to her family and started to wind down their search efforts. Fred doggedly continued to look for his daughter, returning to Haverhill every weekend until eventually, locals complained that he was trespassing on private property. On the 1st of July 2004, Haverhill police asked Maura's family to give back her belongings so they could perform a forensic analysis. They joined rescue workers, state troopers, and volunteers on July 13th to perform another massive search near the crash site, but found nothing conclusive. As months passed, Fred Murray and police received a few leads, but they appeared to be hoaxes. Fred Murray appealed to the New Hampshire governor, Craig Benson, and appeared on national talk shows to ask for help. He eventually filed a lawsuit against the police in an effort to see their case files, but was denied access. Maura's disappearance had never been classified as a crime, and the investigation was listed as ongoing, so the records remain sealed. After 2006, Fred Murray and several other groups, including private detectives, volunteers, the New Hampshire League of Investigators, and the Molly Bish Foundation, continued to search for Maura. That October, volunteers believed they had located evidence of Maura's murder in an A-frame house about 1 mile away from where she had crashed her car. No conclusive evidence pointing to Maura's whereabouts was found at the site. By 2010, Maura's case was cold. Since 2010, no new leads have been found that could help solve Maura's case. Fred Murray believes that someone abducted Maura on the night of her accident and killed her shortly thereafter. His 2020 request to have a New Hampshire historical marker placed at the site was denied. Nevertheless, the case was never closed. In January 2022, the FBI issued a national alert for Maura Murray. 2 years later, in February 2024, the state of New Hampshire released an age progression rendering of Maura's face in hopes that she might have been seen. Maura Murray's case has captivated millions of people since its inception, and today, internet sleuths continue to discuss her case, following every lead and picking apart every detail on sites like Reddit. Maura's disappearance has been depicted in the series Disappearance and covered by everyone from ABC News to the Dr. Oz show. Maura's sister, Julie, created a website, a podcast, and a TikTok account dedicated to her sister's disappearance. Although we may never learn what truly became of Maura Murray, it's certain that her disappearance became a cultural phenomenon. What we can say for sure is that her case stunned the nation and caused unfathomable pain to her family. Unfortunately, the odds are good that they will never have any real answers to the question of what happened to their beloved daughter.